Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. It's so weird to start these when we've been talking for an hour already. Just about catching up. And
We're ready to let you in now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, listeners. That's a good point. Maybe we should tape those pre-conversations. Oof. And you have to pay money to hear them. You have to hear, that'll be blackmail material for all of us, won't it?
Yeah.
That's no.
I'm sorry, listeners. There's just things that we can't let you in on yet.
Sorry.
You'd have to sign an NDA, too.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Yeah. Very strong.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, this week we're talking about 1981.
Woo.
Over 40 years ago.
Oh, that's depressing.
That is
Yeah.
the year I was born.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Also, Heath texted us and said he was 6 years old and he had things to say.
I was like, well then.
Well then,
We're in. I'm not going to say that wasn't in my head when I was doing research. I'm like, which of these things triggered Heath?
Yeah.
I'm still pissed about the royal wedding.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
There's a lot to be pissed about.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
First off, of course,
Yeah.
unmitigated gall.
Mm-hmm.
Which of you would like to go first with your gall?
I mean, I can start.
Let's do it.
Well, I need to preface this with saying that I don't have this before I say it.
Oh, so it's not Morton's neuroma or dead feet.
No, I have both of those.
Yeah, both of those.
We've clearly established my feet are no bueno and are definitely dead. So my unmitigated gall this week is lice. Because
I'm very glad you prefaced.
yeah. Also, none of my children have it, just to be clear.
Okay.
Why it's about unmitigated gall is because I have been living in a world where, like, I had forgotten about lice.
Oh,
yeah.
I just was like, oh, I thought we kind of, like, moved past it somehow. I realize that this is somewhat naive. You know, there's probably someone right now dealing with lice that's like, oh, really? We moved past it? But you're
sounding like a COVID denier right now.
Yeah, it did. But here's what happened to me this week. I was driving in Windsor Heights, and I came to a stoplight, and I looked over at an office building, and one of the offices is
the place
Lice
you speak of.
Clinics of America. And when I tell you I was shook, I was shook. I went home and looked it up because I said, what are they doing there?
Yep.
It's a hot air treatment for kids with lice. You go there, and they put like a...
I've seen that.
Yeah. But I'm out here living like we didn't need a whole clinic. And now I can't get it out of my head. We were in Target yesterday, and Mason was looking at hats, and I was like, absolutely not.
Oh, you didn't want him to try it on in case there were little lice.
In case there was lice.
Okay, yeah.
And I know the sign because it says that the way the sign's written, and I don't remember how it is, but it looks like it says slice.
Yes.
There's like
I have seen that.
Yeah. And I'm just
like,
like,
what
is that where they
this?
make the Sprite alternative from the Coca-Cola bottling company?
Speaking of 1981. Yeah. Wow.
Lice Clinics of America.
So your gall is the fact that lice still exists.
Yes.
We can put a man on the moon. Why can't we get rid of lice?
Why can't we get rid of lice?
Also, it never occurred to me to burn them up on someone's head.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, I was, you'd had to do that like crazy treatment, like pull it through your hair type of thing. Like I remember from youth.
Yeah.
But
I remember them coming into like our homeroom class, and the
Yeah.
school nurse would just go from kid to kid, and then just would comb through your hair and looking to see if you had lice. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
I remember
is there
seeing
not a
them
better
on
way
other-
to do this?
Yeah, I remember seeing them on other kids' heads and yeah.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because and when the kids are younger, like it's not unusual to get like a lice note, like, hey, there's someone in the school had or whatever, and they want you to check your kid's head. But I was out here just living like that didn't exist, and just happy on a Wednesday afternoon driving, and I looked over and I was like, there's a clinic, a whole clinic? What am I doing?
They've got a lease.
Yeah, they have a lease. They are.
They're paying an electric bill.
I'll tell you.
Property tax?
The sub-unmitigated gall of this is that I watched the video on their website, and the lady was doing the treatment without gloves.
Ooh.
Oh.
And I found that to be suspect, gross, and just really bad directing.
I'd also like to point out to everybody right now, my head itches. Like, we're talking about this and my head itches.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's so true, though, because, as I've talked about, there's some outside cats.
Yep.
So I am very careful with, like, washing my hands thoroughly, like, when I come back
Yeah.
in, and, like, making sure that none of the dishes match with my cats and, all the different things. But still, I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll feel itchy and I'm like, oh my God, it happened. The fleas are here. And, you know, it's kind of similar to the lice situation.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
Yeah,
gross.
fleas are just cat lice.
It's
Same thing.
It's the same thing, yeah. I wonder if you could take your cat into lice clinics in America.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks
boy.
for that, lice clinics.
Of
Sorry.
America.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I know. I'm
That's
sorry that I felt the need to bring everyone else into it, but
every listener right now is scratching their head.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just think maybe we've gotten a little unvigilant about hats and things. If we got
That's
clinics of America popping up,
Yeah.
we needed to be a little more on guard.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
But the name Lice Clinics of America suggests there are lice clinics of Portugal, of Canada,
And is the
of
treatment
Denmark.
different?
Right, yeah.
That's a good question.
Right. Do Southern Hemisphere lice react differently than Northern Hemisphere lice?
Right. Maybe the heat treatment
go-
doesn't
Right.
work. They have to do a
Right.
cold treatment.
Yes.
Or do you have to do it in a different direction? You know, like the toilet water.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What
for
do you
sure.
do?
Yep.
Like when you go to McDonald's in different countries, you get different things.
You get
It's
different
like you
things.
just get a different kind of lice.
Also, I just had a question now. So you were just in Palm Springs and you
Yep.
put on a fashion show for all of us. Did you put anything on your head?
I did not.
Oh, good. Okay.
I did a couple. I have done that before in Palm Springs
Okay,
at a
all
hat
right.
store. They have a
Yeah.
hat store.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like you're
That
probably
is lice central.
safer in like a more of a store than say like, you know, just
Target?
the Target kids
Yeah,
section.
that's God, Target Kids section.
Well, I mean, yeah.
God. I think that's maybe a circle of hell, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. That tracks with their logo and everything.
All right, Heath, what's your goal?
My gall, and anyone who knows me won't be surprised by
Oh.
this. My gall is daylight savings time.
Because it's today. It's today, our friends.
Yep, we lost
Yes.
our hour. We
Yeah.
did. And I get it. I mean, I know people that are proponents of it that'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, we get an extra hour of daylight. And we don't. It's the same amount. I mean, it
Yep.
grows by like a minute or two every day, but it's just, it's not extra. Like
Yes.
the sun didn't just bequeath us with an extra hour starting today because the
That's a
calendar
good
said
point.
so.
Yeah. It's not extra.
Yeah. And I know that we're probably never going to get rid of it. I think the government tried to a couple years ago, but those dipshits can't do anything.
They can't do anything.
So I have, as a solutions-oriented podcast, is what we have here.
Is that what we are? I didn't realize
That's
that.
a whole new category to put us in.
Yeah.
I have some ways to do this better.
Okay.
you know?
Excellent.
Love that.
If you insist on skipping ahead in the middle of the night, do it at 2 a.m. on a Friday morning.
Okay. Yeah,
Because
yeah,
everyone can power through a Friday. And then you got
Yes.
Saturday, you got Sunday to kind of assimilate to it. And by Monday, you're not just
right.
wishing you were dead.
It's the Sunday thing. You're
Yeah.
right.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah.
Or, even better, why does it have to be in the middle of the night on the weekend when we're sleeping?
Yeah.
Why can't it be at 4 o'clock on Wednesday? Why can't we just jump ahead to 5?
That is brilliant.
Yeah. We just, you go home from work a little early, but not because, you jumped ahead to 5. So
Yeah.
it's 5. It's time to go home.
But then, like, companies could be like, look how generous we are. We're letting you off an hour early to celebrate daylight savings. So it's good for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good for them.
Yeah.
My mind, I'm sorry. My mind is blown. Because that's the best solution that I've ever heard.
Excellent idea. Yeah.
At 4 o'clock on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Can we copyright that right now? Can you copyright it?
Can
try
we make t-shirts that say
Trademark.
Heath 2024?
On it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, also this year was a leap year, so all of our
Yes.
jobs, we all got another extra day of work out of us.
Yes.
We didn't get paid more unless you were hourly.
Good point.
So we need some of that back. Hour on Wednesday.
Wow, that's so smart.
Yeah. I'm also so glad that we're a solutions-oriented podcast.
Yes.
I didn't realize we were.
I was doubting that until he said a
Yeah.
real solution. I think we need to specify that a little more. I'm going to go ahead and say you two might be solutions oriented. I'm just a problem. I'm just lice, dead feet. I got nothing. He's over here solving daylight savings time, and I'm like, lice still exist? Doesn't track.
Well, that's it. I mean, we set up a problem, and then Heath solves it.
Heath
Boom.
solves it. That's another podcast
Yeah.
idea.
That's
Just
another-
ask Keith.
Yeah, listeners, send me your problems. I'll solve them for you.
Oh, my God. That is a winner right there.
I will say that there was a bunch of rhetoric, on the news, of course, about daylight savings time this
Yeah.
week. And they had this clip of this, the oldest old guy that isn't Biden or Trump that was clearly in politics that was like, this is why daylight savings is important. And immediately I was like, why the old white guy
Why are we
explaining
doing-
something dumb?
We don't need that.
Did no one look at this and say, could we get a younger scientist to explain? Could we get someone else?
Can we get Beyonce to explain it?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
then people would like it.
It would. Yep.
Yes.
For sure.
Get Dolly Parton to say she's a fan of it. And everyone would be like, done. We'll
Yeah.
do it then.
Solutions oriented. I'm so glad. Well, maybe you can give me a solution for this one. Because
Okay.
my gall is, we're going to talk about guys, so I apologize. It's gross guys commenting and touching tattoos on women's bodies.
What? Did this happen to you?
Let me set this up, okay? So I got another tattoo recently, and I was talking with the artist. And if you're in Des Moines, by the way, the shop is Jade Rabbit Studio. It's excellent. It's all women and non-binary artists. It's really cool. It's a great environment. And I'm chatting with her about how rare it is to have women-led tattoo shops, because they're very often like dude-heavy places,
Yeah.
right? And when you're a woman seeking a tattoo, it can often be a very intimidating place to come into. If you're a woman artist trying to work in those places,
Right.
I've heard it can be very intimidating.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about that, and then we move on to men commenting and or touching tattoos on women's bodies. So I related the time while we were talking about this. I forgot about this. I blocked it out, apparently. I was remembering the time I was at a Walgreens.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
get this, the
Uh-huh.
line at Walgreens, okay?
I hate this already.
Yeah.
Just
It is summer. I'm wearing a tank top because that's what you do in Iowa in the summer. And I had a tattoo right here of a line. It's on my back shoulder. It's a line from a book. And there is a man behind me that reaches and pushes my strap aside so that he can, and touches the tattoo so he can be able, what's this say?
Was he blind? He doesn't need to use his hands to read it.
I don't.
This
I'm
is a
so
very,
uncomfortable.
very good point.
Is your
And
tattoo in Braille?
It's embedded underneath.
then that would have been an invitation, perhaps. This was not an invitation. And it was one of those moments where I just went like all sweat and all just sort of cold at the same time. And I think I mumbled something and then just left, right? Because I was like, this is disgusting and gross. So I was telling her this, my tattoo artist, and she said there was one time she was wearing a crop top. She had a stomach tattoo, and a guy reached out and touched her stomach tattoo and was like, oh, tell me about this. That felt so intimate and disgusting.
Oh no.
And she's like, yeah, it's just, all the artists there, right? They're all covered in tattoos. So they all had stories. And they were like, yeah, this one and this one, they're touching this and they're touching that. And I'm like, why are we doing this? But it also feels like it's related to politics and men feeling like they have control over women's bodies. So,
I am shook. I am shook.
My gall is that somehow tattoos embolden gross guys to be grosser. And I hate it. But at the same time, I love tattoos. So I don't know what to do. What's the solution, Heath?
Do you know how to throw a punch?
I will learn.
Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
That's a good
Definitely.
solution. Yeah, that's a good one.
Or tasers. Tasers. are
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
Or you could get a tattoo above the other tattoo that says, don't fucking touch me.
I like that a lot. Maybe one on every angle of my body.
Can you turn around and be like, oh, is this eye real? And just poke him in the eye. Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Great. Thank you.
That one.
I love
like
to
that
touch
one.
eyes.
Yeah,
I like to touch eyes.
It was the
I can't get past that.
I'm a real eye gal.
I love to feel the slimy eyeballs.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's my gall. Shall we move on to 1981? I bet there were gross guys touching women then too.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not in a good place, just so we know. I'm not in a good place.
Are you very disturbed?
I'm so disturbed by that. I just. God
Have you
damn.
told Walgreens about this, by the way?
I figured it was just happens at Walgreens all the time, right?
Yeah,
Like
they'd
that's,
probably write back and be like, yeah, no shit.
or they'd probably be like, "Well, I mean, what does it say on
Yeah,
the back here?
right,
Make
yeah.
it clearer to read." Yeah. Whew. Anyway, Aaron, do you want to lead us out of this And
sure.
move us into 1981?
Yeah.
Okay. What a year.
What a year. Okay, so I chose things that, like, obviously, I was born in 1981, so
Yes.
I don't have, like, core memories necessarily
You
from
don't?
1981. But
In utero? You don't?
I don't, unfortunately. You would think I would, but... So what I did was pick things that started in 1981 that then later I encountered in my life.
Oh,
that
that
were
makes smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of these was aerobics.
Literally, they started in 81?
Yeah, 81 is when it kind of took on the form that it's known.
God.
It started in 1968. This doctor, and of course it was a male doctor, decided that aerobic exercise helped prevent disease. So he kind of came out with this recommendation that everyone needed to exercise regularly. And so this sort of like took off. Some other people tried to take it, kind of went with it. We've got Jane Fonda started those aerobic videos.
Yes.
But then step aerobics kind of started developing in 1980, and it became a huge craze in 81, which is sort of the iteration of aerobics we understand now, where like you have that like pastel color black, and you're like, and 1, and 2, and you've got the leg warmers. And coincidentally, this is the same year that Olivia Newton-John's song Physical.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And for me, those two are just somehow, like, I feel like, I understand that wasn't the point of the song, but it sort of feels like she wrote it for aerobics because they always play that song.
Yes.
So my first time going to aerobics was like, I was younger. I don't even know if it was middle school, high school. I know I went with my mom.
Oh,
And I know that we had the steps and we were moving and we were doing the exercise. And I remember thinking, why is this lady yelling so much? Because it would be step, not high enough, get it higher. And I was like, I can't. It was one of my first times realizing that other people's voices can be a problem for me.
Yes, yeah.
That wasn't enough to stop me. I remember doing it. I think I took a class of it in college. I mean, I remember doing it, but it was always in random gyms. You're playing a weird mix of songs. Olivia Newton-John's like Physical, and then, it goes into something completely different. And you're like, what? Stevie Wonder follows up Olivia Newton-John? What's happening? And it was always stepping off that block, which seemed like a bad move for me. At some point, I'm going to break an ankle.
Yeah.
But it was a real big craze that started and endured for a long time. And it kind of is credited with then, like, where we are now with P90X and Zumba and some of that other stuff.
What's P90X?
Like a super high intense.
Yeah. It's like a set of DVDs that you watch at home, and you just sweat your ass off, and it's just like jumping around, and it's sort of like, what's that thing that everyone was so into like 5 years ago? The gyms that you'd go and you do the 24.2.
Like the high intensity.
Yeah.
thing.
CrossFit.
That's what I'm saying.
CrossFit. Yeah.
It's sort of
Yeah.
the home
CrossFit at
version of
home.
CrossFit,
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
It's like Jane Fonda on crack. Like, it's just
Sure.
super high level. Like, you're just supposed to be, like a sweaty mess. But so obviously it's continued to like reinvent itself. But it came out of this place where this guy was like, hey, exercise is helpful. And then somebody was like, let's do this. And let's step on this step and play weird songs.
Let's charge a bunch of money.
Yes.
And
here we are.
a follow-up question for you.
Of course.
Why was your mom bringing you to aerobics in middle school?
I think I wanted to go. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe she was taking it, and I was like, I want to,
Because it probably looked fun or
It
something.
did, yeah. And then I
okay.
realized quickly that no, that's
not fun.
not fun.
No.
That is a recipe for disaster. And I remember thinking, it's going to be very dependent on that person's energy and voice. Like when you have one person leading a class like that, you really have to be in tune with that person or feel good about that person, because otherwise the whole time you're like, shut up.
Yeah. I have always hated exercise classes. Have you ever been a class person, or do you do it by yourself, like
I
exercise by
prefer to
yourself?
do it by myself.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the few times that I have gone to classes, I would get so annoyed because like the people would be like, I know it's hard, but smile while you're working through it. I'm like,
What?
fuck you.
Yeah. There's
I
always
am
that kind of
sweating my organs out. I don't want to smile right now.
I think that might be a very like cisgender female
absolutely
experience.
It is. Yeah.
Like you need to look good and
Yes.
smile. I know it hurts, ladies,
Yeah, but smile through the pain.
think how good you're gonna look for your man.
Oh, you can have a cupcake later.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, you can have Jello and fat free.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Some snack wells.
Yeah, you can have one snack well.
I had to take an aerobics class in college. There was a
Oh.
class called Personal Wellness at UNI.
Yes,
And-
that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and 3 days a week it was a lecture, and then 2 days a week it was a lab. And the first half of the semester, I think I had to take a skill lab, which it was archery. And the second half was a physical activity one, which I had to take aerobics because my options, because I was a freshman, and so last to sign up,
yeah.
my options were running stairs in the Unidome or aerobics. And I was like, well,
Running stairs in the unit.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
Oh my
you would just
God.
It was
apparently
just like a stair class.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would just run up, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'd purposely
That's-
fall down those stairs
yeah.
to
Yeah.
get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember that. I remember they played the Judds. That was the song. I don't remember what song
Like
it was.
Winona
but
Judd?
Yeah, or like Naomi and Winona Judd. And I don't remember the song, and I don't remember the other songs, but I do recall she had like 2 playlists, and she just alternated them for the
Oh my
entire
God.
semester.
No.
Yeah.
No.
There was a time like in the late 90s. Remember when Tybo was starting to like
Yes.
become a thing? I remember I got a video.
I forgot that word. That's
and,
great.
Yes, and I was watching it for a while, and it was, you watch the video, and so it's the same playlist every time. And there was like a song from the Gap Band that I hated for 20 years, and it was only like the last couple of years. I'm like, okay, this is a good song. It's okay.
It's okay. I
It's,
just didn't
you
like
know,
in that context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't have to associate it with self-hatred. So
Yeah.
that's nice.
That is nice.
Yeah. On that note,
I love that we took the same aerobics class.
Yeah.
Yes. In 1981, a movie was released, and it was called
There was a movie?
Superman 2.
Ooh.
oh, I loved this movie so much.
And once again, it was a sequel to Superman, obviously. And it featured Christopher Reeve as Superman, and Gene Hackman and Margot Kidder were back, Lex Luthor and Lois Lane. And the plot of the movie is General Zod and his 2 flunkies, who Superman accidentally released from the Phantom Zone, which is a Kryptonian prison they were banished to by Superman's dad right before Krypton exploded. And they've come to planet Earth to pick a fight with Superman because they're still pissed at his dad, and they just generally seem like dicks.
They are. They're big old dicks. Yeah. Yeah.
I really want you to write movie reviews. So bad. Just like a place that you could go on the internet and be like, I just want to see what he thinks about this movie before I invest.
I think that's maybe one of our bonus routes is we do Heath on movies.
Oh, like a movie corner.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you my Killers of the Flower Moon review right now.
Do
Please
it.
do.
Didn't see it because it doesn't need to be 3.5 hours
Exactly.
long.
Good call.
Martin
Love it.
Scorsese, if you're that good, make it 2 hours and 25 minutes tops.
Cut that shit down.
That's amazing because that'd be the first review on the website. Just one
Yeah.
sentence. Didn't see it because it doesn't need to be hours long. Terrific.
So most of Superman 2 was filmed at the same time as the first Superman movie, which started clear back in March of 1977, they say. Wow. And it was going on for about a year and a half. And they actually stopped in October of 78 because they had to finish editing the first Superman because it came out at the end of that year.
Wow.
Richard Donner was the director of the first film and had shot most of the second film, and then he was fired because he had a disagreement with the producers, and they hired a different director, Richard Lester, who decided to reshoot most of the second movie.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there recently they put out the Richard Donner cut of the not recently, probably 4 or 5 years ago, of the second one, so it's more like kind of what he had in mind for it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Is it way different?
It's a little bit different. It's not
Okay.
hugely different, but I haven't seen Superman 2 in a while. It's been since I was a kid since I've seen it, so it would be. I should watch them like back to back, like over the
Yes.
weekend or something like that. But I don't have as much time because of daylight savings time,
God damn it.
so I can't
Tell
do
you
it this
what,
weekend.
I'll rewatch them and report back because I remember so much of it.
Yeah.
And okay.
So there's lots of weird stuff going on in the movie. As far as shooting it goes, it's uncommon to kind of shoot the sequel to a movie at the same time as the original. I know they did that with Lord of the Rings, but usually you kind of put the first one out and see if people like it.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And and they just to scrap all of what you've shot for the second film, just to redo a bunch of it, that's expensive. And it's even more uncommon for the movie to end up being a hit because your average person would likely assume that if they reshot most of it, that it's going to be crap.
Yeah.
Like especially now with the internet, like that, all that gets out, and kind of people are just like, oh, I don't know about that. But as anyone who's seen Superman 2 knows, it's a real good time. They did it nice.
Great time.
Yep. Terrence Stamp plays General Zod, and he just hates everything.
Yes.
And then his one of his cohorts, Ursa, she just hates men, and who can blame her?
Yeah.
You know, basically just listening to what Amy has said about men today.
She probably got touched by some guy.
He probably
Her
moved his straps
tattoo.
on. What's that say?
Yeah.
And every time she beats up a male chauvinist, she takes something from him, like a badge or a patch or something. And by the end of the movie, she's kind of got these all over her uniform.
That's right. I love that.
And this is also the movie where Superman gives up his powers so he can sleep with Lois Lane, even though she didn't really ask him to.
Right.
But then afterward, he has to get them back so he can save the planet, or so he says. because maybe even Superman's a pig. Maybe he'll just be like, yeah, whatever, babe, I'll do what you need.
I got what I needed. Yep. Also, you're right, because when he says he gave up the powers, Lois Lane looks like,
yeah.
Like, well, you're not as hot anymore.
Right, yeah. That was one of my top 3 things I liked about you, Clark.
Exactly. Also, speaking of that sex scene, I remember that being a formative moment and me thinking that's what sex is going to be like, where you say, I got to go slip into something more comfortable. and then you put on this like weird nightgown lace thing and you have high heels that are like slippers. Do you remember those?
Uh-huh.
And then you suddenly, like, the light gets soft and everything, and then you go off and you fuck Superman. So, I mean, that's
a high expectation.
That's what I thought it was going to be. And then I realized quickly, oh, no, you don't wear the nightgowns and you don't do the slippers and you're not fucking Superman. That is out of the picture.
Misnomer, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, disappointment.
It does. Talking about this movie though reminds me of. Gosh, it's been a couple of years. I was in Hy-Vee, the downtown Hy-Vee here in Des Moines, and a gentleman came up to me and said, "You know, if you worked out, you'd look like Clark Kent."
That belongs in the gross guys segment.
Can we break this down? Okay.
Yep, please
so
do.
First off, Heath works out a lot.
He does, yeah.
Apparently not enough.
Yeah.
But.
Also, Heath looks like Clark Kent.
He does, yes.
And I would like to point out, I was not like topless in Hy-Vee. I had like on a shirt and like a jacket. Like I wasn't just running around like naked from the waist up.
I mean, it would have been a good story if you were.
That would have been, yeah.
And third, who the fuck are you, sir?
Well, you know what? If you worked out, you'd look like no one still.
Yeah.
So, God, gross guy. Maybe we need a continual gross guy segment.
Yeah, along with unmitigated gall, got to check in on the gross guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you just the gumption
Right.
to walk up to someone and say that?
I can hear. I mean, I can. You think that you'd see someone and you
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
draw that
Yes,
conclusion.
yeah.
And then you go. You'll tell your friend later.
Yeah.
But to walk up to that person as if they're just like begging to hear what
Yeah,
you have to
please
say.
tell me.
Yes, that's
Also,
wild.
it feels like the internet has enabled so many people to put what they think online
Yes.
without repercussions. This guy went old school.
Right,
He was
yeah.
like, fuck the internet. I'm going to go in person. And I'm going to see the look on his face. And I'm going to get satisfaction from that.
Yeah, what in the... inside thoughts, outside thoughts, people.
Yeah. Good movie. Good choice.
Yeah, that is a good
well
choice.
done. General Zod forever. So my first element of 1981 is it's the first time a TV personality is elected president, and that is Ronald Reagan. And yep, he is a former movie actor and host of television's Death Valley days, which, what was that? I don't know, and I didn't look it up.
The counterpart to Death Valley Nights, maybe?
Yes,
I don't
yeah,
know.
I think you're right. You're right. But the reason I bring this up for 1981 is because, he was inaugurated, and then he quickly showed what kind of president he was in a labor dispute. Because on August 3rd, about 13,000 members of a air traffic controllers union, they walked off the job over, they wanted better pay, they wanted better working conditions. And 2 days later, President Reagan fired over 11,000 of them.
Oh.
Not only that, this was one of the few unions that endorsed him. And he was like, fuck you guys, I'm going to fire almost all of you. He said at the press conference the day that he did this, that they are in violation of the law. And if they do not report, this is how I imagine he said it. Yeah. And if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated. And they didn't get their jobs back. Later that year, the union disbanded, and then it took like years and years for the FAA to get their staffing levels back up to what it was. So he just ended up like fucking over the airline industry and unions and people.
In a way, he's the reason we have wheels falling off planes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think this is indicative of why it makes me so mad when people are like, Reagan was the best. Like all of that bullshit that conservatives
Always.
say all the time.
Right.
Like if you look back at his record, he was an asshole in so many ways.
Yep.
And it's funny that, I shouldn't say it was funny, but it is funny, that this was also the year that he survived maybe the most bizarrely motivated assassination attempt ever. He was shot and wounded by John Hinckley Jr., who believed that the attack would impress Jodie Foster, who he was obsessed with. And look, I get it. We're all obsessed with Jodie Foster.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense. But that maybe took the cake as far as, motivations.
yeah.
Well, I mean, knowing what we know about Jodie Foster now, I think what would impress her would be like, I don't know, like a weekend golf trip with the girls. Like you want to impress Jodie Foster. That's maybe a better way to go.
Yeah, like, dude, sorry, man.
Right.
Not into you. Not into your type.
No.
So President Reagan was inaugurated, quickly showed the kind of person he is, and then went on to prove that out for 8 more years, even after almost dying over Jodie Foster.
I forgot.
But she hadn't even made Silence of the Lambs
She
yet.
hadn't?
No. Wow. Well, you know what? I'm going to piggyback on the Reagan situation,
Okay.
and showing what kind of president he was.
Great.
Because my second thing that still has an influence on my life, because we still hear about it, is that this is the year that aspartame was approved.
Oh.
1981. But this is an interesting how this came to be, which brings up a lot of things for our current day.
Okay.
Situation with the FDA. So J.D. Searle is the chemical company that held the patent to aspartame, which is the active ingredient in NutraSweet. That's what they use to make like diet pops a lot, that type of thing. So in 1980, the FDA Board of Inquiry, comprised of 3 scientists, independent, said, actually, this might induce brain tumors. This isn't great. Okay. And so they banned it. They said, yeah, based on that finding, that's not going to work. And this really pissed off, of all people, Donald Rumsfeld. Yep. That guy who later became our Secretary of Defense. He said, this will not stand.
What was he doing in 1981?
Well, he
Had a hard on for aspartame.
Apparently, yeah.
I'm assuming if you follow the money, he had some stake.
No way.
Yeah. So this
It's
is
shocking.
He later became Secretary of Defense. He wasn't, but he said, I'm going to call everyone. I'm going to do everything I can to get this approved, because this was going to be such a great thing for everyone. Which again, this is a sugar substitute. We weren't solving a disease.
Right.
We weren't doing anything that, he was like, this is really cutting edge. So the day after Ronald Reagan's inauguration, the company reapplied for the patent to use aspartame in food sweetener. And Reagan's new FDA commissioner appointed a 5-person panel and said, okay, we'll review it one more time. And they banned it.
Whoa,
They
Reagan's
said-
group banned
yeah,
it.
they upheld a ban by a 3-2 decision.
Whoa.
And then they said, well, that wasn't fair. We'll add a 6th member. What? So they added a 6th member, and then it was 3-3. So now we have a deadlock. And so basically what happened then is Hull, who was appointed by Reagan, who was the FDA commissioner, got to break the tie. In a tie, he got to break it. He's also the person that appointed the 6th person. And so then they approved aspartame. And since then, we've had it for that entire time. Hull, who is the head of the FDA, eventually took a position with Searle, that company that had the patent for aspartame.
So gross.
Yeah. And he has never, ever since spoken about aspartame or any of the issues with it. And the FDA still says it's safe to this day, even though we've proven a few times over that it's probably not. Yeah.
God, so there's a bunch of brain tumors out there that we don't know about.
In
Because of diet pop.
1980, they were like, scientists are like, yeah, no, we can't really approve this. And they were like, we have to.
I really like that the Republican playbook was already on hand, where it's like, let's just change the rules. Let's do 6
Let's just
people.
add a 6.
Let's just do 6 people. It's fine.
Yeah, and then there'll be a tie, and then I break the tie.
Yeah.
It feels like every playground game that you were ever involved in with that guy,
Right.
who was like, let's play touch football, but I'm the quarterback for both teams. Yeah. Like, what? Why? That's not
That guy
right.
sounds great.
Yeah.
He sounds like a fun time.
So aspartame's still around today. Lots of different names for it, but thanks to Donald Rumsfeld, Ronald Reagan, and Arthur Hall.
So all the aspartame that I ingest is a Republican aspartame. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, they have been very vocal about It's fine. It's fine. It's just fine.
If you just say it for 43 years, people believe you.
Yeah. So I feel like if this had happened nothing would be different. I'm not saying that. If it happened today, it would probably still get approved in this exact same way, the whole thing. But it's just one of those cases where you want to be like, follow the money, people.
Yeah.
Like there was vested interest for them to do this. And the day after his inauguration, so this was already in the works that he was going to make this happen for them.
That's hilarious that they were like, Soviets? No, that's later on the list.
Yeah.
Let's think about sugar.
Aspartame.
Think about sugar.
We got to get this approved. We got to do it. And Donald Rumsfeld's like, I've never taken anything more seriously. Okay.
Amy, when you were a kid and you were just, so anxious about things like just driving around thinking about the Soviets, thinking about Halley's Comet hitting the Earth and all that stuff, did you think about aspartame?
I didn't. I wish I had known this because that would have been added to the list. I would have gone straight up because Mom was real keen on diet soda. So I was like, I would have been like, you're drinking brain tumors right now.
You're drinking actual powdered brain tumors. Yep. Basically, that's what the first scientist said. And then you appointed 5 people, and 3 of them had enough good conscience to be like,
yeah, no.
Listen, it's still not good. It's not good. We thought you had something new. When I agreed to this panel, I was like, awesome. They fixed it. And then I came, and it's the same. Wow. It's the same.
I feel like we should add, in addition to your marketing meetings, like, government meetings.
Yes.
Lobby meetings. FDA meetings.
FDA meetings.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. Reagan was great.
Killing
the
it.
Best.
Second day in office, he's like, aspartame, cheat.
Boom. And it was probably the next day that he thought of Star Wars. And then, when they thought of Dare.
Trickle-down economics.
Yeah, and he was like, we need to rehab Nancy's image. Just low jobs in Hollywood. So let's put her in charge of Dare.
Which is interesting because it's just say no.
Right.
She feels like she could have taken that advice a couple
times.
times.
She didn't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. What do you got from 81?
You know what? There was a second movie released in 1981.
What?
Uh-huh.
Another one?
Another one.
Oh, my God.
And it was called The Great Muppet Caper.
Was this the first Muppet movie?
No, the first one is the Muppet movie.
The Muppet movie, okay.
Yeah. And
So
this
was
is the sequel.
the road
I think
trip
it
one.
came out in 78 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great
And, and
caper.
it's got all our favorites. Kermit the Frog's in it, Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Gonzo, and then, it's very progressive for the time because Fozzie and Kermit play reporters who are also twin brothers,
Oh. Okay.
That's colorblind casting. If I've ever
It
seen
sure
it in my life.
is.
Yeah.
Species blind, too.
Yeah. And it was funny. When Gonzo had his hat on, everyone thought they looked identical. But when he took his hat off, they're like, "Oh, what? You guys aren't related." Like that was the running gag through the whole thing.
So this is sort of the Clark Kent philosophy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
So they're reporters. Gonzo's their photographer, and they're all pretty bad at their jobs. And after being fired, the reporters were fired for failing to report on a robbery. They talked to their newspaper editor boss into paying for a trip to London so they can interview Lady Holiday and report on the jewel heist she is a victim of. Right? So that's pretty ballsy. That's some real Gen Z stuff right there. Like, oh, you fired me? Can you pay for a trip to London? Thanks. So their boss agrees. He agrees and pays for the trip, but only gives them $12 for their plane tickets. And so, I mean, today, I was at an airport recently. For $12 will get you a bottle of water in an airport
Yeah,
now.
that's not going to cover much.
Yeah. Thanks, Obama. So since they only had $12 for airfare.
I'm done. We can't continue. We cannot continue. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Okay. You haven't heard that in a while, I bet.
Oh, all right. Sorry. All right. I'm back.
So the plane won't land in the UK. They have to parachute out of the plane.
Oh,
that's what $12
okay.
gets you in 1981.
Okay.
So they land in the UK and they get a room at the Happiness Hotel.
Oh,
Which
is
is-
that like the Forest of Feelings?
I think it's much better than that.
Okay, good.
Happiness Hotel.
So the rest of the Muppets just coincidentally happen to be staying there. You know, Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem, the Swedish Chef, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, Beaker, you know. Mm-hmm. So Kermit goes to interview Lady Holiday and meets her new assistant, Miss Piggy, who he thinks is Lady Holiday. And he instantly falls in love with her. Oh. Because at the core of every good Muppet story is Kermit and Piggy falling in love. Mm-hmm. And they agree to go out on a date. And so while they're on their date, they're at the same nightclub as the real Lady Holiday, her brother Nicky, and Nicky's associates / models, Carla, Marla, and Darla. Yeah, which are, those are classic bottle names if I've ever heard one.
For sure. Carla, Marla, and Darla.
Yep. Uh-huh. So at the club, Lady Holiday gets robbed again, losing her necklace, which Miss Piggy gets blamed for, which is some bullshit.
That's some bullshit.
Yeah. So Miss Piggy ends up in prison because the justice system is swift in the United Kingdom.
And unfair.
Yep. And the real thieves plan to steal Lady Holiday's biggest jewel of all. And I'm like, this bitch has got a lot of jewels.
Yeah. It's like Elizabeth Taylor up in here.
She needs to shut it down because she keeps getting robbed. Stay home and lock the door.
Stop wearing them out. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it's her biggest jewel of all, the fabulous baseball diamond. Because obviously it's the Muppets, so it's called the baseball diamond.
Yeah.
And it's on display at the Mallory Gallery.
Oh my God.
Mallory Gallery.
And basically just like how those two items alone didn't earn this movie an Academy Award is a crime itself.
Yes. It is, yeah.
Kermit rounds up everybody at the Happiness Hotel to help foil the real thieves' plan. And they stop by the prison, and Kermit poses as her lawyer to kind of let her know what's going on. So the Muppets go into the Mallory Gallery. They catch the thieves, who are none other than Nicky, Carla, Marla, and Darla. Those were the thieves.
What?
Yes.
No.
My jaw is on the ground.
Carla, Marla, Darla, come on.
So it turns out Nicky is packing heat, and while he's holding Kermit at gunpoint, Miss Piggy busts through a stained glass window on a motorcycle to save the day. She'd broken out of prison, using her bare hands, I might add.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Well, not really her bare hands. I mean, she wears those silk gloves all the time. She was wearing those.
Yeah.
So she knocks Nicky out and then beats the shit out of Carla, Marla, and Darla. And the thieves confess, and Miss Piggy's name is cleared. Because again, the justice in the UK is swift. Very swift.
That's amazing.
So the two things that I personally remember the most about this movie are the collectible glass set from McDonald's. That includes a glass with an image of Miss Piggy busting through that stained glass window.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, which is like my prized possession until, I don't know, either got broken or got misplaced or something. I don't know. Maybe it got stolen by models with dumb names from my house.
It did.
Yeah.
The other thing that sticks out to me is a line from Janice, who's the lead guitar player for Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. All the Muppets are talking at once, and Kermit is trying to quiet them down, and everyone stops talking except Janice, who is finishing a story that's completely unrelated to the situation at hand, and says, "Look, Mother, it's my life, okay? So if I want to live on a beach and walk around naked..." And then everyone just looks at her, and then she stops, which is like my brand of humor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And also, I really like the idea of Janice living that life.
Yeah. That's terrific.
That life is full.
So I will leave you with this.
Okay.
We need a Janice origin story. ASAP.
Yes, we do.
Oh.
A whole movie just about Janice.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. I would watch the hell out of that.
Me too. It's so weird that you mentioned the Swedish Chef because this week on CBS Mornings, they were talking about Sweden joining NATO. And Colbert had done a little skit where he was like, yeah, and then they flashed to him in the Biden's State of the Union address, and it was the Swedish Chef in the audience, the Muppet. And it went back to Gayle King, and she's like, I don't get it. That was a puppet. And I was like, I was so enraged because I usually have the news on in the morning when I'm working. And I was like, who doesn't know the Swedish Chef?
Gayle, come on.
I was like, how is that a gap in your knowledge?
Right. Yeah. Oprah did her dirty.
Yeah.
Oprah's partly responsible for that.
I think
for
so.
Sure. For sure.
I think so. I was like, get it together. I mean, she was genuinely like, what?
Do you think that, because maybe 10 years ago now, they released new Muppet movies.
Yep.
Do you think that brought it to the consciousness of kids again, or do you think people know who Muppets are anymore? Because when we were kids, it was not just the movies. It was the show, the Muppet Show. I don't think that still exists anywhere in any form.
They've tried to redo it a couple times, but
Yeah.
it hasn't really stuck.
I think if you ask Mason, he has a knowledge of the Muppets, but he wouldn't have the breadth of knowledge
Sure,
that
right.
we have,
Yeah.
about how many of the other. He might be able to be like Miss Piggy and Kermit, but I
Yeah.
don't think beyond that really.
It's a bummer.
I suppose a lot of kids probably just are like, that's the Sesame Street folks. That's
Yeah,
their
that's
friends.
Yes,
that's true.
yeah, very true. Yeah.
Which that's fine. That's
Yeah.
they're all good. I always like the eagle too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Forget
yeah.
the eagle's name, but Sam the Eagle. Yeah.
I like on the internet, they have the clips of like celebrities that are on Sesame Street.
Yes.
And the outtakes where like Julia Louis-Dreyfus is swearing in front of Elmo. Like, that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my next pick is the birth of a legend, which is music television, otherwise known as MTV. First came out in 1981.
Woo.
I don't really have much notes beyond that. Just the fact that it came out, it was in existence, and then for years it was mostly music videos. Then it branched out into so many reality shows. It really started the reality show phenomenon. Then it broke out into all sorts of different, live shows and whatever. I don't know what's happening with MTV now. Does anyone know what's happening with MTV now?
I don't really know. No.
I think RuPaul's Drag Race airs on Friday nights.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out that you said, does anyone know what's happening with MTV? And immediately we both looked at Heath. We were like, what's going on with MTV, Heath? Our reporter on scene, Heath.
Well, that was a big part of what I wanted to bring it up, because I think we probably all have key memories of MTV.
Absolutely.
You have talked about some key memories of MTV. Namely, your Whitney Houston sitting all day in the summer waiting for that damn video to come on. But I wondered if we could, share. Do you have any other key memories of MTV besides that beautiful Whitney Houston moment?
I know. I remember the TRL days when I was in college. That was
Yes.
big. That was a big thing. I remember before TRL, they had like a nightly countdown. It was like the top 5.
Yes.
It was like the most requested videos of the day, and it was like Carson Daly was like kind of sitting in the dark, and he would play them, and that kind of
As he should be.
right?
Yeah.
That turned into TRL, which was like. That was huge. Yeah, for a long time. I mean, they're like Times Square was shut down all the time, especially when like NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys
And it was
were there.
the place for artists to go and to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd go promote stuff.
I TRL for me, and the other one, which this is not to indicate that this was like a fave of mine or whatever, but I have a very distinct memory of when Beavis and Butthead premiered.
Oh my God,
Being
yeah.
like, oh, this is something totally different, totally like, it felt very even edgy for MTV at the time. And I remember I'd always watch it at my friend's house. We weren't allowed to watch it. So
I wondered if you had it at home. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
we did, because my mom worked for a cable company. We actually got it for free. Like, that was one of the perks, but we weren't allowed to watch it. There was a thing on our TV, I think it was blocked, but if you typed in the number, like if you went through if you just scanned, it wouldn't come up, but if you knew the number and you typed it in, it would go to that.
Of course you figured a workaround. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That bringing up Beavis and Butthead reminded me of all the different sort of cartoonish shows. Like
Yes.
Eon Flux was
cool.
on MTV. Yeah.
Daria was good.
Daria, yeah.
Yes, that was great. Yeah.
I think why what was so different about Beavis and Butthead was that it was the first time a cartoon was sort of not for kids. It was the first time it was more for like adults, and they would say and do things that.
And it felt like a particularly our age,
Right.
like. And very much of the 90s moment, with grunge and alternative and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've read a little bit about the beginnings of MTV, and two things. One, some of those key VJs like Adam Carolla.
I forgot about him.
Now I'm completely forgetting all the names.
There was Kennedy, and there was Kurt Loder was news.
Kurt Loder was news.
Martha Quinn.
Martha Quinn, yes. Yeah. Well, a lot of them are now DJs on the Sirius XM 80s on 8 channel, which is pretty kind of cool.
I love that.
So they'll often count down on the countdowns for 1981 or whatever.
Yeah.
I also like, because it's a moment that I can bring in David Bowie,
As you should.
as I should. That the first maybe couple years of MTV, it was which is hard to sort of imagine now. It was mostly white artists. They were sort of ignoring a lot of like Michael Jackson, things like that, and David Bowie very publicly called them out on that during an interview, and said, why are you not playing, black artists and all these people? And you could see the reporter, who I forget who it is, was sort of like backpedaling, like, oh, well, we're trying to appeal to the masses and to mainstream America. And David. It kept cutting to David's eyes, and he's just sort of boring into his soul, just like looking and looking like, what else are you going to say?
Yeah.
What else are you going to say?
Yeah.
And, he kept going on about some marketing proves this and whatever. And, yeah. Oof. And David, he was not having it. And he was just like, I think it's just a real disservice that you're not including these artists. And by the way, I mean, Prince, come on. He was talking sort of like that about some of these amazing artists that were being left out. So I don't know if that was the only reason that MTV diversified, but it was a very public reason that came about, which makes me love him all the more.
Even more.
All the more.
As you should.
I don't know if we've really gone into my David Bowie obsession too much here in this show. We did in Broads and Books, but yeah, that's a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Thank you.
It's an important thing.
But lots of memories from MTV on mine too. But one of the videos that I waited like all day long to see was November Rain by Guns N' Roses.
Oh, yeah. And that was a long one.
That was a long one. Yep. And it was like waiting for a little epic movie for, that it would play. And that must have been 91, 92. So it would be like a lot of, grunge videos in the middle of it, which was great. I was into that. But I was just waiting for November Rain.
Uh-huh.
And then I would test the structural integrity of our TV speakers when it came on. They were not great.
I just realized sorry, this is going back a topic, but I just realized who Janice the Muppet reminds me of.
Who?
Kid Rock.
I was thinking of Marianne Williamson, the presidential candidate.
Yeah.
She's just so random. She'd be like, well, if you just believe it, you can achieve it. You're like, what? What are you talking about? Wow. Kid Rock's better.
Kid Rock is way better.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought up Sirius XM, though, because Downtown Julie Brown, who was real popular, she's on the 90s
She's
channel.
on 9, that's right.
Downtown Julie Brown. That's good stuff, too.
It's such an interesting, that became a career. VJs became a career.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's really any personalities today on MTV, but...
I think, is Sway still on? Maybe Sway's still on there.
Maybe.
But they still have, what's funny is, we everyone knows they don't really play music videos anymore, but they still have the MTV Video Music Awards.
Yeah.
At the end of the summer every year. And it's just like, are you really the authority for handing these out anymore?
Because now it's just basically like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and
I can't honestly say the last time I watched MTV,
No, it's been years and years. Used to watch it a lot in college too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because we didn't have it in Parkersburg. We had cable, but it wasn't part of our cable because, the town was like, no, this is scandalous. This is risque. So we could not watch it in Parkersburg.
Wow.
So wait, how did you get to watch it then?
While I was in high school, I worked at a pizza place, and our boss lived in Cedar Falls, and I would give him a VHS tape, but I'd be like, can you go home and just record MTV while you're sleeping?
God.
So he'd record 6 hours of MTV, and he'd bring me back the tape, and then I'd go watch MTV. I could watch what I wanted to and fast
We are
forward
solutions-oriented podcast, and Heath was a solutions-oriented teenager.
Other than the fact we just buried the whole lead of the MTV story.
Yes!
Heath was so ahead of his time. He was like, take this, record it.
Leave it on overnight.
That's so resourceful.
Yep.
Me at that age just been like, bummer. He's like, no, I won't stand for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
If they ever, cut off the internet in totalitarian countries, you will find a way around it. You'll figure it out for all of us.
That's who I'm going to
That's
first.
who I'm going to.
Yes.
Turn on my hotspot. Something.
What's your last one, Erin?
My last one is a toy / puzzle that we all know. I don't know if we love, but the Rubik's Cube.
Oh.
Now, it was not invented in 1981.
Okay.
It was invented in 1974 by a Hungarian designer and architect who really invented it to help his architect students and engineering students understand how things work together. It was only when he took the whole thing apart and tried to put it back after he moved all the pieces that he was like, oh, I've created a puzzle. He couldn't figure it out.
Wow.
And so why it's important for this year is because this is the first year that they held a speed cubing championship.
Oh, boy.
So hot.
So hot. Now, this is not something that was on my radar at all until last year.
Okay.
When Mason and I found a documentary on Netflix called the speed cubers. And it follows some young students who are speed cubing championships, and it follows them like through their championship, like going to the next, how their parents support them. Like Mason was fascinated because the speed that they can do a Rubik's Cube in is amazing. And I didn't realize, I thought that was a new phenomenon. So when I was doing research and I was like, oh, the first championship was held in 1981 in Munich. And the best time was 38 seconds. It took someone to solve it, which is kind of, because now it's evolved enough that people, like, there's solutions out there, right? So they practice the solutions. They practice how it should go. And obviously when you're in a speed cubing championship, they give it to you in different states. Like, it's not just, you know, so you have to figure it out how to solve it. But there are definite steps now. Well, that came out of the evolution of internet. You know, there's a lot more research you could do to figure out how to do it. But this is also the year that the U.S. held their first one. Okay. So the first one was in Munich in March. And then in November, the U.S. said, we'd like to get in on some of that hot TV action.
I hope they included the shoulder movements you just did. I'd like to get in on that action.
On that speed cubing action.
It made me think, before this I was thinking, what if on a dating app someone's headline was like, I'm a speed cuber? That would be an instant no from me.
That's a hard pass.
Yeah,
That's a hard pass. Although it is an opportunity for you to touch someone else's speed cube and say, how do you solve it? Because I think that would be, that from what I understand from the documentary, you're not to touch other people's Rubik's
cubes. I think touching a speed cube is some sex act, isn't it?
I think so. Especially in Germany.
True.
People pay good money for that in Germany.
They sure do. They sure do.
They sure
And there's
do.
world championships for it too.
So the U.S. time was 26.04 seconds.
Ooh.
Yes, and it was broadcast on a show called That's Incredible on December 7th. You remember it?
I remember that. Not that episode necessarily, but I remember that show. That's incredible, yeah.
I did not.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I just was fascinated by that because I feel like a Rubik's Cube is something we've all encountered at some time. Either like it was given to you as like a weird stocking stuffer gift or whatever. But there's a very distinct strategy to it. And I did not realize. Mason and I really enjoyed that documentary. It was really interesting. But I thought that was a new thing. And no, it's been since 1981. People have been speed cubing.
They've been doing it your whole life.
My whole life, they've been out there. I also love the idea, speaking of like meetings, that the guy was like, oh, I made this new thing for my students to learn. And then he was like, oh, shit. I don't know how to do it.
I also like that he took I can't do it anymore, so now I'm going to give it to everyone. Yeah. I'm going to give, frustration the world
Everyone
over.
can have it. But there was also, as I was doing research, there was a lot of like racing about this patent. Because other people kind of like took the idea and were like running with it. Like there's a story of a publishing company stealing a solution from like a 9-year-old.
Oh my God.
I had it like written in a notebook and some publishing guy saw it and then they were making a book about how to solve. There was a lot of weird like corporate espionage going on around the Rubik's Cube, which is fascinating. It also tells you about the toy landscape in 1981. That they were like, this is going to be a hit.
I always think of Big when I think of the toy landscape because apparently it was a cutthroat world at that toy company.
It was.
And they just needed a man-sized child to play with them to know what was going to work or not.
Big piano, Rubik's Cube. Yeah. Like, that's all we need.
Yep. I had a Rubik's Cube when I was a kid.
Did you?
And I remember being deeply frustrated for not being able to solve it.
Yeah.
And so, again, as a solutions-oriented person, I just moved the stickers.
Yeah, you did.
I just rearranged the stickers on that side of it. And I was like, look, I did this. I'm a genius.
And everyone can see they're kind of peeled out.
Yep. I fooled a grand total of 0 people.
Okay, well. But, I mean, you showed your solution-oriented mindset.
Now I want to get one and see and, like, read on the internet and see if there's really, like, a concrete strategy of how. Because, I mean, it feels like you can start in 10 million different places and I have to end in the same place. I don't know how that a strategy can be applied, but I'd like to figure it out.
It feels similar to, did you ever get like, I felt like there were sort of toys that were popular. There were almost like magic sets, like interlocking chains and things like that you were then supposed to figure out how to remove and everything. And I would immediately get so annoyed and frustrated. I'm like, nope, unsolvable. Just put it away.
Well, we do know your healthy hatred of games, so this is
true.
not a surprise that this
came early. Yeah,
it came early. This came up. Mason started piano lessons recently, and the first time we went, there was a solved Rubik's Cube on the table.
Oh.
And Mason asked a question. He was like, oh, they solved it. And he said, yeah, somebody was here the other day and solved it in like a minute. And then every time that either Mike or I go with him to piano lessons, one of us updates the other. Like the very next week, Mike's like, oh, it's all messed up. Somebody messed it up again. And then the next week it was put back together, like whoever is coming in between the lessons.
What a saga.
I know. We're like so invested in this dumb Rubik's Cube. But
this is why games are stupid. You're getting invested for nothing.
I know. It is. Yeah.
Anyway, what you got last?
You know what? Hold on to your hats.
Oh, boy.
Your lice-infested hats. Because there was a third movie came out in
What?
1981.
Whoa! There
Uh-huh.
were 3 movies. Whoa.
Big year for movies.
Big year for the cinema.
Endless Love is
Oh,
a
God.
film starring the
Oh.
most successful blue jean model of all time, Brooke Shields.
Oh, wow.
That was fucked up movie.
It sure was. It sure was,
God.
everybody. It came out in the summer of 81, and this is the second episode in a row now of this podcast that we've discussed Brooke Shields. So maybe, I know it's a solutions-oriented podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Brooke Shields fan podcast, too?
Maybe it is.
Might be,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so the plot of Endless Love, everybody, is absolutely bonkers. Brooke Shields plays Jade, a high school student who falls in love with David. They get real close real fast. One night, Jade's mom catches Jade and David doing it, and instead of telling them to keep their hands to themselves, she's wishing it was her with David instead of Jade. Normal, healthy mom stuff.
Yep.
Jade's dad is
I
busy
saw this
pointing out
movie.
red flags to anyone who will listen, but no one's listening.
Been there.
So Jade's grades start to suffer, and her dad says, no peen till the end of the semester.
Oh, bummer.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
use the word peen, but you get it.
should have.
Yeah.
You should have.
It would have been fine in that context of the movie.
Yeah.
David doesn't like that one bit, but Jade's mom convinces him that it's a good idea. Maybe because she thought she'd have a better chance with David, with Jade out of the picture. I don't know. So one of David's friends tells him a fun and safe story about when he was a kid, and he set his family's house on fire by accident, but then put it out, and his family thought he was a hero for doing so. And I guess they didn't do arson investigations then, but whatever. So David's inspired to set Jade's family's house on fire, but doesn't put the fire out in time, and the whole place burns up.
No.
But the family escapes physically unharmed.
What is this movie?
It's so fucked up.
So David gets put on probation and sent to a mental hospital for evaluation.
Okay.
There's also a no-contact order between him and Jade and her family, who have moved to Manhattan, where Jade's parents decide to divorce, which, it's a good idea. That's the one good idea so far in this movie. Yep. So when David gets out of the hospital, he goes to Manhattan to get his lady back, but finds her mom first, and mom tries to seduce him, which is very gross and weird. But somehow exactly what you'd expect at this point. But before turning her down, though, he finds Jade's address at college. So
Oh my gosh.
David's about to catch the bus to surprise Jade at college, but then he sees her dad on the street. So being the calm, cool, and collected individual that he is, David decides to start chasing Jade's dad, who gets hit by a car and killed while trying to escape his daughter's ex-boyfriend. David is sentenced to just 5 years in prison, everybody. Just 5 years, which seems extremely lenient to me. Jade is despondent because she's convinced no one will ever love her again the way David does, which is what any sane individual would want in this situation.
Yeah. But that's real love.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the only sane individual was recently run over and killed by a car. So in lieu of a sane person, Jade's mom encourages Jade to go visit David in prison, which she does.
I forgot about that.
While this movie is deeply, deeply fucked up, the song from the movie, also titled Endless Love, is actually a very romantic song.
It is, which when it's paired with the movie is so weird.
Yep. Lionel Richie and Diana Ross sing it, and Lionel Richie wrote it. And I would bet $300 American that Lionel Richie based the song off the movie's title alone and never actually saw the movie or read the script.
That sounds right.
And in a surprise twist, everybody, Endless Love is Tom Cruise's first movie role, and he played the part of the kid who gave David the idea to start Jade's house on fire, and that just feels right to me.
It really does. Also, wasn't Endless Love covered again by Mariah Carey
Right,
and
Mariah
Luther
Carey and
Vandross?
Luther Vandross, which I wanted to play at my wedding, and my husband told me no, and I was like, Mariah Carey and a gay man singing "Endless Love." Actually,
What's
I think
wrong with this?
you know what? I take that back. I take that back, Michael. I wanted it to be the song we danced to at our wedding, and he said no. I did play it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm shook. I didn't see the movie, so I am a little bit.
And when you hear the song and
Right.
know that it's
Yes,
from this
'cause
movie,
I know the song.
You're imagining it's this beautiful romance
Right.
of, teenage love, and it is fucked up.
I'm thinking like along the lines of like the Blue Lagoon thing with
Yes.
Brooke Shields, like real sweet and like they worked it out and it was real nice and everyone was coming from a good place and nobody was a
So
crazy
are they
fucker.
together at the end when he gets out of prison?
I think that ends with him still in prison, but she's like going to visit him, being like, I'll wait for you. Like that. That's the message that is.
This poor girl's throwing her life away.
Yeah.
So this
This
is where
weirdo
all
creep.
stalking began.
Yeah.
Like this is.
And this is where that idea that, oh my God, what's a guy willing to do for you? And how much does he love you?
God.
And it speaks to the idea of like trying to be the cool mom. Like you shouldn't be the cool mom. If you know your teen, don't be like, your teens are going to do it anyway. You can do it at my house. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Let them figure out a place to do it somewhere else. Let them be resourceful.
Yes. It feels like this was the precursor maybe for a lot of weird movies later on. Like, think of Fear with
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's some elements in there from this.
I did not know. Like, I know the song,
Yeah.
and I knew there was a movie. Never knew that's what. Jeez.
I don't think I watched it when I was a kid, but I watched it maybe in my 20s or something. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Even just watching the preview for it,
Yes.
you're just like, what? And God, holy shit.
God. I was not expecting the dad to die.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And it's weird too because I know Brooke Shields had I'm not sure if her mom's still alive, but had a real iffy relationship with her mom because her mom was like putting her out on all these jobs and
Momager.
and was Brooke Shields was her income.
And they were like pimping her out hard at a super young age and making her sexualized at a really young age. It's gross. This probably didn't help that.
Wow. I don't, like,
You were shook?
I am shook by just the fact that Tom Cruise told someone to set a house on fire. And we continued to be like, you know what? That guy.
That guy right there, he's got something.
Yeah.
I feel like honestly, knowing what we know now, he'd be a better fit for David.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
that's what I was
sure.
thinking. Yeah.
And then at
Wow.
some point he'd be like, you're not into Scientology? I'm going to burn this house down.
I'll burn it down.
And he was chasing after the dad because the dad wouldn't sign up for the classes. And
Yes.
so he was,
yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yep.
That is what it was.
Yeah.
The dad was going to say where Shelley Miscavige was. Just saying.
Well done. Yeah. Well, my final one takes us to space.
Oh,
We're going to space, everyone.
Space!
Because in 1981, the Voyager 2 satellite came close to Saturn and took pictures of its moons and its
no.
rings.
sounds dirty.
Yeah, it got real. It got real in there, real into Saturn. And I bring this up because I think
I haven't got Saturn's consent.
Saturn was like, "Who are you? Why are you penetrating my rings? No,
I'm just in line at Walgreens.
Yeah.
stop trying to study me."
Saturn's just trying to get that prescription filled.
But this brings up what I think is a fascinating story of the Voyager satellites, which were launched in 1977. There were two of them, the Voyager 1 and the Voyager 2, and their main mission was to study Jupiter and Saturn, right? And so it took 4 years for them to get to their respective places, and they made a bunch of discoveries. They found the active volcanoes on the moon of Io, and they, looked at the rings, without consent.
Yep. Like the
And-
pervs they are.
Exactly. And because they got pervy and they got all the goods, like a true stalker, then they went further.
Ooh, of course
And
they
they they kept going into space. They
And
wanted
Lionel
to
Richie wrote a song about
penetrate- They wanted to penetrate deep space, so they kept going. And in fact, in 2012, Voyager 1 made it into interstellar space, which is where it's the region between stars filled with material ejected by the death of nearby stars millions of years ago.
Oh,
so,
gosh.
like, it's
Star
dead
ashes?
ejaculate. It's just all... And Voyager 2...
They didn't mention that in Star Wars.
They didn't talk about...
They really glossed
dirty
over that
space
part.
ejaculation. They didn't. Voyager 2 got into interstellar space in 2018, and both spacecraft are still out there. They're still sending scientific info through the Deep Space Network, which feels like a conspiracy.
Yep.
It does.
It does.
But what I really love about this story is the story of the golden records. So basically NASA put a time capsule on these satellites, and these golden records, it contained all sorts of audio and visual of life here on Earth, with the idea that if they ever made it out into extraterrestrial land, someone would know about us and who we were at that time. So they were 12-inch gold-plated copper discs.
Nice.
And they had sounds and images.
Like rims?
Yes,
This
like
sounds like rims for like a car.
Why did they have to
said
be
fancy
gold plated?
Because probably Trump got involved
Yeah.
in something, you know. But the contents of the record were selected for NASA by a committee chaired by Carl Sagan. Big name in science. They brought together 115 images and a variety of natural sounds like wind and thunder and birds and whales and other animals. And then they added music from all different cultures and eras, and there were spoken greetings from Earth in 55 languages, and there were printed messages from President Carter and UN Secretary General Waldheim. You know, that guy.
Yeah.
But what is crazy is that it will be 40,000 years before they make a close approach to any other planetary system. So they're just designed to just keep on going for years and years. So we'll all be gone and dead by the time.
Speak for yourself.
And I'm talking about... I'm talking about humanity, not just us. Like, as a species,
Why? What do you know?
Done.
Yeah, what?
I mean, we saw the movie Deep Impact. We know what's going to happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking though when you were talking, I was like, boy, those satellites are still out there working. They must be tired.
They must be
But
so
apparently they're like
tired.
5% into their journey.
Yeah, they're going. And there was a fun fact that at one point they wanted to include Chuck Berry as one of the musical selections on the Golden Record, but the committee was like, "Oh, that's a little too much. That's a little too outrageous." This was
Chuck
1977. 1977, they thought Chuck Berry was too outrageous.
Who did they put on there? Pat Boone?
It must have just been like traditional music and stuff, right? Or like classical and things like that.
I'm still kind of thrown by the choosing to put like nature sounds on there.
Yeah.
Like that's an odd.
Yeah.
Because, okay, the purpose was if we found another life form, they would have an idea of what life was like, and then there's just whale sounds.
What they should have included was a bit of MTV.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
it wasn't made yet, I guess, in
No.
1977.
They should have put a Diet Coke in there.
They should
Some
have put some
aspartame.
aspartame.
Those whales, maybe, there's them gay whales that are out in the oceans
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been shown in lots of different like pop culture and things like that, but I always just thought that story was so interesting.
That
and
is interesting.
And on NASA.com you can chart the journey. You can see
Oh.
like when it, got to whichever planet, because at some point they went to Neptune and to Uranus and got
Of
right
course they
in
did. Of
there
course they
into
did.
Uranus. And then, it charts like when they got out into space, deep space, and where they are now. And so it's really, really cool.
Wow.
But yeah, 1981.
I didn't realize it had like 40,000 years to go.
I mean, it is saying a lot that they think that the satellite will last 40,000 years. I mean,
That's true.
The construction, I don't know if it's going to last
Right.
that long, but, whatever.
That's some unearned white man confidence.
It
is
really
what that
is. It really is. But if
Because I love to imagine meetings.
yes.
I was imagining the guy that was like the engineer in charge of the construction.
Yeah.
Like the high level, scientist
Uh-huh.
that then had to go to the meeting where they're like, here's what we're putting on. We thought Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
We said no. And he's like, I'm trying to make this thing last 40,000 years. I don't give a what noises you put on there, okay? I don't need to come to this meeting anymore.
Record this meeting and put it on there.
Yeah.
That'll show humanity.
That'll show how ridiculous we are.
It is fascinating to think that, let's say 40,000 years from now, it's still around. There's an alien out there.
They should beam this podcast up there. That's what they should do. People will be like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Get
Like,
it.
I understand humanity.
Yes.
But they don't have our podcast, so they just get a bunch of whale sounds. And they're like, so the species over on that planet Earth,
Right.
just a bunch of gay whales.
We can make whale sounds.
Yeah. They're like, we don't really need to go there, I guess, because we got that covered.
How did that sound again, Heath?
We're an all-purpose podcast. We check all the boxes.
Oriented.
We really do.
You can skip back to that section for noise when you're trying to fall asleep.
Exactly. Just repeat that. Just repeat it over and over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sleep like a baby.
A whale, baby.
Raised by his two daddies. Well, that was 1981.
What a year.
What a year.
What
There were
a
3
year.
movies released in 1981.
Movies.
It's a record.
Some weird space
Cinematic
stuff,
features.
a shitty president, and some, carcinogenic sugar.
That sums it up. That is a summary, I think. Yes. Loved it.
We'll be back another year, another
You know
take.
it.
More movies, more hot takes, more solutions.
Yep. Totally solutions. More animal sounds.
Solutions from one person. I think we've established we've got one solid solution person.
Fuzzy Memories is a Broads and Books production. It's hosted by Heath Smith, Aaron Johnston, and Amy Lee Lillard. The show is produced by Amy Lee Lillard. Follow us at Fuzzy Memories Pod on Instagram for clips and highlights. And follow us at Broads and Books Productions for updates on new shows coming your way. See you next time.
Lines that you have that I retexted
Yes.
her because I'm like, I miss that and I am dying at home by myself. But this week it was when
Random
the
badge.
when you said so, you're just a random badge.
Also, Haley texted us and was just like, that point where you just said, just shove it up your butt. She was dying. Could not get over it.
It took me a minute because just out of nowhere I got a text that said, just shove it up your butt. And I was like,
It's like, okay.
out of context, that's something.
Yeah.